Welcome to Internet Safety, hosted by Donna Rice Hughes. You'll learn practical and crucial tips on how to keep your loved ones safe in the digital world. Now, here is Donna.
Hello, welcome everyone to Internet Safety with Donna Rice Hughes. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about breaking news regarding child online exploitation, and also we're going to be looking at what state and federal lawmakers are doing to rein in big tech and to actually catch the predators and to fill the loopholes that now exist in the law so that kids really can be safe online. So we've got a lot to talk about, and I have a wonderful guest. His name is Joel Thayer. Joel is the president of the Digital Progress Institute. He founded his own law firm, and he served as policy counsel for the App Association. He was also a legal clerk for the FCC chairman and the FTC commissioner, and he was a congressional staffer way back in the beginning of his career for Congresswoman Mary Bono, who I know and love and miss on the Hill. And the really cool thing about Joel is he plays the guitar, and he's getting married this fall. Joel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Donna, for that very kind introduction. I think the coolest thing about me is that I'm getting married. Yeah, so.
Well, yeah, one lucky girl, I'm sure, and you feel the same way that you're one lucky guy. So, congratulations, by the way, Joel. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
All right, so let's talk about some breaking news. Our new sheriff in town, Attorney General Bondi, has been fast at work, making some arrests, really key arrests regarding child predators that are operating online. One that just came down earlier this past week was Operation Restore Justice. 205 were arrested in a nationwide FBI child sex operation, according to Patel and Bondi, and loving our FBI director too. We're so grateful. Just for our audience, enough is enough. Regularly, or each presidential season, if you will, we write the Children's Internet Safety Presidential Pledge. And one of the things that we asked each time is for the new president to appoint an attorney general and other law enforcement leaders like the FBI director who will aggressively enforce the existing laws. Yes, we do have laws on the books and they need to be enforced. Otherwise, the bad guys just keep doing what they're doing, right, Joel?
That's right. They only respond to one thing, and sometimes it's brute force.
Exactly. And Joel, just today, well, actually, let me take that back. Also, just recently, there was another huge international child exploitation ring broken up, which is called this 764 gang. Is that right, Joel?
That's right. They're, as the president once described, other unlawful folks, they're pretty bad hombres. They are responsible for a lot of the sexualized and sexploitation that we're seeing online. And so what I think you're seeing, you said this very right. And I think that we have a DOJ that's trying to address a very acute problem in our society. And that is this growing concern that some of the worst among us are using internet services to harm children. And it looks like Pam Bondi and Director Patel are just leading the charge on making sure that this doesn't happen, not under our watch. And it's a huge credit to them, President Trump, for making this a priority. It really should have happened years ago. And I'm glad that that, as you say, there's a new sheriff in town and that sheriff's ready to govern.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say new sheriffs. And we're seeing what Tom Homan's doing at the border. And let me just say this for our audience. Both Joel and I run organizations. We believe, and Joel, you can chime in on this, but this is a nonpartisan issue. Protecting kids online is a nonpartisan issue, which has wide bipartisan support at the federal and at the state level. But unfortunately, it really does take top-down leadership with the President of the United States to set the agenda of what those priorities are going to be for each of the agencies when he's in office. And what we have seen here now, and it's just, I mean, here we are just coming out of the first 100 days, and we're seeing these stings and these arrests starting to happen. And this is what we know. This will actually start to curb this. When these guys know that they're going down and that they're going to serve time, and that's another thing, they need to be serving a lot more time, in my opinion. Then things are going to start to change, Lord willing, right, Joel?
That's absolutely right. And you cited too that this is existing law, and this existing law was created by bipartisan Congress, but it really comes down to the enforcer and the enforcement priorities. And so you need real watchdogs on there focusing in on what the law is, what the law says, and what the enforcement parameters are, and to actually move forward with serious investigations. And it seems, I think if there's anything that we've learned in these past 100 days, that they're serious. Pam Bondi has been just, it's been refreshing to see that type of leadership come back in. But DPI is a bipartisan org, and what I think gets lost in this conversation is that this is not, as you rightly say, a partisan issue. Both sides agree. Both sides know that we need strong enforcement to protect our kids, and you can tell they know that because there's laws that underpin a lot of these enforcement actions. And so you're still, but the good news is, even in times where we think there's a lot of division, a lot of political division, there's a lot of unity around the issue of protecting kids. I mean, we saw that very, very recently with the passage of Take It Down Act. I mean, that was a bipartisan coalition that saw a problem and said we're going to stop it. And I think that's if there's one thing that unites this country, it's that we understand government's fundamental role, and government's fundamental role is to protect our most vulnerable, and that is our children.
Absolutely. And since you did mention the Take It Down Act, let's just let our listeners know what the Take It Down Act was really all about. And this was about dealing with what we call in our space deep fakes. Now our audience may not know what a deep fake is, so we'll just tell you very quickly. And Joel, I'm going to turn that over to you, but let me just say that the Take It Down law didn't just refer to deep fakes of children. And yes, there are deep fakes of children, and we call that, whether it's AI generated or a real child being abused, child sexual abuse material. That is always illegal, but it's not always taken down, unfortunately. And then adults over 18 can actually have AI generated sexual images of them. And this law would actually require the services, once they're notified, to actually take this content down within a very short amount of time, Joel.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it fixes a noted loophole that a bunch of advocates have pointed out for years, and have said that our laws there are laws on the books, but there's this gap and confusion as to the liability of the platform themselves, even once they have notice of that there are these parade of awful content that should never be anywhere discussed in a public forum, or really be in place in civil society. And so what this act would do effectively is, once you've got, as you said, once they get notice, they can take it down. It fixes a noted loophole. It protects folks, protects kids, adults, all the above, because we're all impacted by these types of harms. And so this could ruin lives if it stays up there. And it has ruined lives. And so I think that this is something that I think is been so refreshing to watch as well, where you have, Senator Cruz, who goes across the aisle, works with a whole host of different Democrat partners, and on the House side too, same deal, and all coming together and coalescing around this idea that just because AI is cool and innovative at times, it could be harmful. And we acknowledge that as a society, that there are things that we're just not going to tolerate. And this sent clear message to AI platforms, tech companies, and the like, that look, we're all for innovation. We're all for encouraging human flourishing and AI's role in that, but we are not going to sacrifice our priors. And that, I think that rang loud and true when the First Lady came in and said, "I support this. This is important. Protecting kids online is going to be a staple of her own advocacy," and I'm happy to see it. And it's again, I can't reuse this word enough. It's very refreshing to see that, to take this see this administration take this as a priority, and I hope that we see more of.
Yeah, and absolutely, and we did see a lot of this as a priority in the first administration. So, enforcing the rule of law, that is the role of the Department of Justice and every attorney general in the United States. Just to outline a little bit of the problem of how big online child exploitation is, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children just last year found that there were more images of children and images and videos of children, minor children being sexually abused, tortured, and tormented as young as babies and toddlers. Now, this has been going on for a long time. What's different is that it's an escalating problem. So again, the new sheriffs in town, hopefully, Joel, we're going to see those numbers start to go down, because the bad guys that are out there abusing children, knowingly abusing them, hurting them, violating them, sexually abusing them, taking pictures and videos of this abuse and then selling it, multi-hundred-billion-dollar industry. That's just got to stop. And there is no parent in the world that can do the job of law enforcement. We're going to talk about what parents can do to protect their kids, because, of course, as a parent, you are the steward of your child's innocence, but the government does have a role to play. So next, Joel, I'm going to go to a recent Wall Street Journal article. This is a little scary, okay? And you're going to go, what the heck are they talking about? But here's the headline. Meta digital companions will talk sex with users, even children. Joel, first, what is an AI chat companion?
So it's basically a fake friend that's been created by a series of source code. It's a robot friend, but it's not the friend that you would typically, go to a coffee with. It's a friend that has troves of data on you, knows exactly what you're doing, knows exactly who you are, knows what you've been following, what you haven't been following. They actually probably know more about you than your own best friend, and they're able to use that knowledge to curate conversations that Meta would probably argue is driven by the consumer. But in general, there clearly seems to be some other motive behind it. I think that's what the story alludes to a bit, that there are these suggestive terms that the AI will lay onto to maybe encourage more of a sexually explicit conversation. And it seems that there's a clear indifference as to whether or not this is an adult or a kid. And that's the real problem. The real problem is that there is this almost willful ignorance of who is on their platform and assuming no responsibility for that. And so in short, I definitely understand the value of having AI, having chatbots, being able to use it for educational purposes, but that's not what this is about. This seems to be, in a very creepy fashion, a way to replace human interaction with a robot that has a hidden agenda. And for all the folks at home, how these companies make money and why they want your data so badly is because they want to sell you stuff. Ultimately, they want to take that stuff, they want to take all of that data, turn it into little profiles, and send it to an ad agency or a group of advertisers so they can sell you other things. And so this is where this is a little different than me and my best friend Kevin, who I've known since first grade. For Kevin may want to sell me something, but that's not the basis of our relationship. And when we have conversations, it's very private. It's only things that I want him to know. And instead, I am now having a direct interface with an AI. Whether you're an adult or a child, that should be terrifying. This is a system of protocols that ultimately know you better than your doctor.
Yeah,
And that terrifies everyone.
you're so right. And here's what's really interesting that even Meta has said is that they created these chat companions that to be able to have romantic conversations with quote unquote an adult. And what the Wall Street Journal did is they went, okay, well, let's see if Meta has put in the safeguard to actually protect kids from these kinds of sex talks with these robots, so to
Yeah,
speak.
they saw the movie Her and thought, hey, this isn't a creepy movie. This is actually a romantic comedy.
Just make this happen.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think they missed the crux of the point of the movie, which was this cannot replace an actual romantic relationship. It's a very use.
And so here's what what we're all need to be concerned about. Not only is it creepy, but these AI chat robots, at least according to the article, and even some insiders, they say, yeah, they actually Meta may not have the safeguards in place. I don't think they've got the safeguards in place yet to actually prevent this from happening with underage kids. So Wall Street Journal actually set up some test accounts, pretending to be kids, and actually found that these chatbots were actually having these romantic sex talks with the fake kid accounts that they set up. So here we go. Thank you for some good journalism. It's always great to get some good investigative reporting here. And so hopefully this is just going to escalate everything back over to these big tech companies and say, no, you have got to have the safety measures in place before you start jumping on the next big thing. And even Zuckerberg said, hey, I mean, he was actually quoted. He says, I missed the TikTok boom and the Snapchat boom. I'm not going to miss the AI companion boom. So I personally think that they're moving too fast and they haven't got those safeguards in place. Joel?
Yeah, the move fast and break stuff mentality has to end. You're not a teen. Whenever I hear that, it sounds like an adolescent child saying, "I'm going to do whatever I want," and it's time. It's time now to recognize that these platforms, they have societal value. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to communicate on that. That's a net positive for society. But if you are going to be that large, if you want to be the central platform for this, you have responsibilities. And so we'll talk, I know we're going to talk about this later, but there's a way to handle that responsibly. And one of which is legislation, to make sure that once you have reached a certain size, once you have been able to ingratiate yourself with millions and millions of people, even worse, millions and millions of kids, you have responsibility. It's true in basic property rights. It's called the attractive nuisance doctrine. If you have a property and you have a trampoline on your property, and kids are walking up and down, and even though the kid's a trespasser, you didn't invite the kid on your property, that kid uses that trampoline that they saw clear-eyed from wherever vantage point that they're going to be crossing, and they use it and they get hurt, you're in trouble as a homeowner. Why wouldn't the same principle apply to something as dangerous as this?
Yeah.
Please beyond.
Well, and it's so true. And for our listeners, those of you who know enough is snuff, our focus is, we started in 94, 95 at the advent of the internet. And we've always said there is a very important role that these technology companies need to share in the responsibility to protect kids, and to have the compelling interest that government does have, according to the Supreme Court. They need to start putting safety first over profits. They haven't done it. We've been waiting for voluntary restrictions, voluntary default filters, voluntary everything, and they typically don't do and start to move the needle in the right direction until they get public pressure from groups in our movement, the internet safety movement, or Congress says, okay, so much for the carrot approach. We're going to pass the stick approach. We're going to regulate you guys. So Joel, this is what's happening when these multi-billion-dollar companies have unfettered access to vulnerable children, right? And I want to come back to this follow the money idea. And that is, I actually wrote an op-ed on this. And there was a study that Harvard did in 2022 that found that 6 major social media platforms made $11 billion with a B, $11 billion from U.S. users under the age of 18.
Look, I think it's pretty well established here that a lot of these companies, whether it's Apple, Google, Meta, Microsoft, all of them, our only value to them is the money that they can make off of us. And so to say that, a big tech company is coming here and telling you, hey, we're going to be a bastion for your free speech. We're actually here to unite you and create all these relationships. And guess what? The service is free. And I harken back to Milton Friedman when he says that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And so really you're the lunch. And that's the sad part about the digital ecosystem, is that we are nothing but inputs to them. And so in reality, it is not the corporation's job to make sure that we're safe. It is a fundamental obligation of the government. The social contract that we negotiated and engage with on a day-to-day basis with the government is that they offer us we offer them taxes, they offer us protection. And so this is part of that. And integral to the government's role is to ensure that all of us, including our kids, are safe from these predatory corporate actions. And as you rightly said, we've given them a chance. We
Yeah.
have we have frankly given them 2 decades to figure this out on their own. They refuse to do so because there's absolutely no incentive. As you rightly said, Donna, there is nothing but carrot and absolutely no stick. And that's the problem. So now we're starting to see legislators step forward, mainly at the state level. And yes, we saw a few little trinkets of good legislation get through the federal policy. I'm hoping there's more,
Yeah.
but I think we as a society are looking at each other and saying,
Enough is enough. Can I just
enough is enough. Yeah, that's right.
hashtag enough is enough, everybody? All right. So let's talk about some very important legislation that you've been very integrally involved with, as have enough is enough, but not so much is you, Joel Thayer. You've been such a leader with the App Store Accountability Act. So let's talk about this. I love the fact that when we talked prior to this interview, you said, Donna, remember, this is a store. All right. So what is the App Store Accountability Act? How did it start? What states are moving forward with this? And let's talk about where we are federally as well. But let's start at the state level.
Sure. So let's start. Well, I think we should start where what does it do,
What
right?
does it do? Mhm.
So the App Store Accountability Act is it's premised on a fundamental principle, and that is that it's parental oversight and parental control over what their kids are able to do on a device. And I think every person who watches this has experience, whether you're an actual parent, whether you're a grandparent, whether you have a niece or nephew, or you have friends who have kids, have all seen what we all know to be true, that these kids cannot keep their eyes off of their phones. They can't go 5 minutes without being pinged, or they can't go even 30 seconds without feeling this sense of FOMO, which is fear of missing out, where they run back and they have to check on whatever portal they enter into. Now, look, most of that, okay, that should be that the parents know that they know what's happening, but what they don't know is what they're looking at while they're on the device. And that's been a significant problem. And that is a problem that exists on the App Store layer. It's not necessarily just that the apps are bad themselves. I mean, some of them are very helpful, but
Yeah.
the problem is that the parent has no idea at times what the kid actually consented to, or even what app they've downloaded. So what the App Store Accountability Act does is it puts the parents back in the driver's seat. So if a kid wants to download an app, if it wants to engage in in-app purchases, if it wants to, and mind you, in all of those interactions, there are terms of service, very complicated contracting that goes on when you download an app and when you get an in-app purchase. That includes like data privacy, data management practices, things that kids just don't understand. I mean, heck, I'm a lawyer. I've worked with these companies for well over a decade, and I can tell you that that these privacy policies are not clear, and they're not
Right.
clear for someone who has gone all throughout law school and have read these things front page and back. And you know what? If it's confusing even to me at times, I can imagine it's daunting for a kid to even remotely understand, and that's assuming they've even read it. So, and the problem that you have is that these the Apple and Google have been able to obfuscate their responsibility as the primary distributors of these applications through their 2 major app stores. Apple and Google have been found to basically, or Apple's been alleged and Google has been found to be complete monopolists of their own app stores. And so they run the show. They're the ones that are they're the first touch for all the interactions a kid will have on their mobile device with respect to third-party apps. And they feel like they have no accountability to anyone. Now, they'll say that they have these safeguards put in place, but Donna, as you know, as it's been widely reported, those aren't real parental controls. They might as well just be more fodder for their PR. Like, it has nothing to do with actual child safety. They just want to make it look like they're doing something so that they get listed as the good guy and all the other apps are the bad guys. But the reality is you're the drug distributor. Like that, like you have just as much culpability in all the addiction and all the issues that related to the internet economy as Meta or anyone else. And if you want to make the case that you have no responsibility, even though you handed these kids all of these various harmful apps, and you want no responsibility, you're going to find it very hard to argue that in the court of public opinion. And I think that we've seen that over 70% of parents in Texas felt like that this is the right way to go. And I imagine that statistic, I think it was 80 actually. I think that statistic is probably going to be carried over in every single state. And we're starting to see people wake up to it. And so the App Store Accountability Act is one thing, puts parents back in the driver's seat. It ensures that we can hold these app stores and developers too accountable when they fall short of the promises that they made to individuals and parents in particular. And we
So it's really,
contract minors.
Joel, how does this, so okay, we've got Utah this passes, Texas, some other states, all right. We're looking at this at the federal level. That might be a bit of a long shot right now. So state by state is great. We love it. So what does the act require the Google store and the Apple store to do that they're not doing now? Or do they have to have certain parameters in place to even allow an app to exist in their store?
So Apple and Google already have set that those parameters on their own with their developer guidelines. What the App Store Accountability Act does is just hold them accountable to their public statements. So Apple and Google have both said that they already do age gating on a lot of these on their app stores. They already say that they collect this information with respect to your age. And the problem that we have is that there's no enforcement. There's no, again, all carrot, no stick. They're able to avail themselves to all this data and be able to use it in any way that they want to, but they don't want to use it to effectively enforce their own parental controls. What the App Store Accountability Act does is it sets out the obligations that they themselves have set up, that they themselves say they do. One is to make sure that they are actually verifying the age of the user to ensure that if a kid is downloading an app, that they are not contracting against the will of their parents. And so what it would, in that event, once they've identified that the user is a minor, then it would notify the parent, hey, little Susie is trying to download app A, B, or C. Are you okay with this? Yes or no? And what that does is it gives notice to the parent that says, okay, what is the app? So now the App Store has a responsibility to say, first, what is the app? What is the age rating of this app? What does it do? And then after they read through that, they can say, yeah, Susie can, yeah, download this app. I'm okay with it. And I want but I want these parental controls on it too. And if Apple doesn't adhere to that or Google doesn't adhere to that, which it turns out that they frequently ignore parental controls, then then we bring down the hammer with an AG enforcement in Texas, or in Utah, a private right of action. So they have to be accountable to the actual parents and children they harm. And so I think that's the crux of it, and those are the general obligations.
So yeah, this should be music to every parent's ears. So which states have already enacted this? And I can tell you, as a resident of South Carolina, it is moving through the legislature there. But Joel, what other states? And this is something, by the way, that our listeners can call your legislator. You know, if your state isn't mentioned here, say we want to get the App Store Accountability Act in my state. So Joel.
So it's been enacted and signed into law at Utah only, but Texas is voting. Texas House voting momentarily. So as we're recording, we might hear word that the App Store Accountability Act is passed in Texas. And as you noted, South Carolina is another state that's moving through the legislature. We're feeling pretty positive about that. Alabama, we ran into some hiccups, but it was going through Alabama. We fully expect that it's going to be reintroduced next year or next session. Florida, same deal. We have Hawaii, which is also, it's going through their legislature. We're still figuring all that out. Alaska is another example. But I mean, Oregon, and the list just keeps growing and growing because it's just such a common sense solution.
It absolutely is.
I mean, Apple and Google both call their respective app distribution markets stores, but they want no accountability that a regular store would have. I mean, the basic, just the general idea that we would be okay with a 7-Eleven or CVS not checking for an ID when they purchase things that they're not, when kids purchase like alcohol or anything else or any other addictive substance is crazy. And the fact that, just because you're a digital platform, somehow you get a pass. I'm sorry, just because you add an electron to a legacy thing doesn't make it new and doesn't mean that we throw out all our priors. So going back to what we originally talked about, this comes back to a fundamental idea that is we are trying to one encourage that's government's fundamental role, which is to protect kids, and we're doing it in a way to ensure that parents are in the driver's seat.
That's right. So parents really can be the first line of defense. Just one point on this App Store Accountability Act. I first heard about the idea or the vision of this from Meta executives that I know and have worked with. And I said, that's a great idea. And then, of course, Joel, I met you and found out what you and Melissa and some of the groups were doing, and we hopped on the bandwagon. So not all big tech companies are against this. It's primarily the ones that have the app stores, right, where the onus is going to be put on them. So big tech doesn't always coalesce together and agree with one another, but they sure do put their money against a lot of the legislation that we're going to be talking about here. The next,
but Don, before we go, that's the benefit of this program, right? I mean, so
right.
First, let me be very clear. The App Store Accountability Act has a dual responsibility. Meta doesn't get off the hook on this law. They they too have an app store, so they have their own obligations. There are obligations for developers not to lie about what their apps do, and if they do, then they can get enforced against this act. So Meta is going to get hit twice on this, and the fact that they're willing to say, look, as long as like we're all going to get regulated, that's fine. What I love about it, the strategic thing that I love about it is that we're having these, you said billions, they're actually $1 trillion companies. These $1 trillion companies, these $1 trillion gorillas are going at it, and they're going to beat each other up, and they're going to outspend one another. While they do that, we will pass good policy that makes sure that kids are protected. I think this opens the door to so many other positive laws that will come through. Because if we get that age verification down and we know that the App Store has it, and we know that most kids are accessing these harmful apps in a mobile context, they're not using, their laptops or anything else, they're using tablets and they're using mobile devices. If we can handle that problem, we can solve that problem, then that opens the door for things like Kids Online Safety Act. It opens things up to a whole host of other very positive things that ensures child safety throughout the ecosystem. But this bill acknowledges that every single part of the internet stack has a responsibility, and we have to attune that responsibility to where we think they are the most effective. And the app stores, they should be the ones age gating, full stop.
Absolutely. And we've been talking about age verification for a very, very long time. Almost as long as I've been doing this, even well, fast forward, social media came out in the early 2000s, and it started as only over 18. I mean, when it was just Facebook and MySpace. And because these apps have always been designed for, adults, college and above. And then they said, hey, we're just going to go younger and younger. So parents, everyone realized that your 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old can still go and get a lot of these apps just by lying about their age. So what this age verification would require is that the kid can't lie about their age. They have to be age verified. I believe parents want this. We certainly want this as advocates, and the technology's there. Look, we're putting people on the moon forever. We may be putting somebody on Mars pretty soon. We're creating these companies are creating AI romantic chat robots. We can get age verification. It's been in existence for a very long time. All right. So the next piece of legislation that I'm very excited about, this is near and dear to my heart, is age verifying that someone going to a porn site has to be at least over 18. They have to be a legal adult. There's age verification that is now passed out of Texas and a number of other states. We're going to talk about that, but I want to go all the way back to when I first started in the 90s. The very first piece of legislation, the Communications Decency Act, was designed to make these pornographers that have age verification on their website. They had to verify the age and be accountable and to be responsible for this content that was out there. which is illegal. And most of this is not even protected speech for adults. It's called obscenity under the federal obscenity laws. It depicts, a lot of violence, a lot of rape type scenes. Many of the scenes depict a female being sexually violated in some way. So Joel, okay, we're going to talk about the A.G. Paxton case that is now before the Supreme Court. We're waiting a decision. This is huge. We're hoping and praying that the Supreme Court's going to agree with Texas, and this Texas law is going to go in effect. That's going to start a whole snowball effect around the country, right?
I think so. That's right. And I think that what's positive about this is that we get real case law. I hope we get real case law that says this is what obscenity is, and we're going to enforce obscenity laws for the. I mean, it's kind of gone by the wayside for the past 20 years. So I'm really hoping that we get that. I think it also is emblematic of the distinctions between what the bill that we talked about. So App Store Accountability Act is more of a conduct regulation. We're more worried about the contracting, the legal contracting, and we don't care about what the content is. We just feel like no kid should be contracting with a $1 trillion company. That's just the basis of it. Whereas the porn is very much a content law, but it's a content law that has been basically upheld by the Supreme Court for years, up until a few internet cases that I frankly got it wrong from my perspective. I don't think that I don't think that age verification is all that difficult. I didn't think that was that difficult in '96 or in the early '90s. But even now, with the trove of data that they have, that for a porn company or porn website that just play Babe in the Woods when it comes to everything but well, they're not Babe in the Woods when it comes to like knowing how to send you targeted advertising, but all of a sudden they have no idea what age you are when you enter on the site. I think it's just so disingenuous, and I think that it felt the same way. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get some pretty good case law on the books pretty soon, and that we can move forward and just stop with this nonsense and go back to the originalist perspective. The First Amendment is meant to protect us, not big tech and not porn companies.
Porn companies, and let's just say that this is a multi-billions of dollars. Just one porn hub is generating billions and billions of dollars a year. They know they're breaking federal obscenity laws because they've been able to break federal obscenity laws in the United States of America since right after George W. Bush was president. That was the last federal obscenity case that was brought. So look, they're going to break the law as long as we let them. And so, Lord willing, not only will this law be upheld, and we'll see this snowball around the country because many other states have passed similar laws, but also, in addition to that, the content, even when age verification goes into effect, when they're producing content that is illegal, it's prosecutable even for consenting adults. That's where the Department of Justice and AG Bondi, I hope, will come in and say, no, you cannot keep producing and distributing this content, not on our watch. That these are two things that need to happen, in my opinion.
That's 100% agree. This is getting to the point where not enforcing our obscenity laws is turning to just a complete willful ignorance of the problem. And it's been far too long. The courts have sat on their hands on this for well over 2 decades. It's time for them to get the gusto and just say, look, we are not going to tolerate this as a society. Yeah. I think that we're almost there, and I'm really hopeful that we're doing it, especially with especially with the TikTok case, where they acknowledged that a mere regulation of an algorithm doesn't raise the First Amendment specter. I hope that we get something similar to that, where it's, look, obscenity is obscenity, and it's not First Amendment. It's not protected in the First Amendment. Let's move on.
Well, no, the Supreme Court has already said multiple times that both child pornography, or now what we're calling child sex abuse material, and obscenity is, whether offline or on the internet, is not protected speech, period. But, unless you get the obscenity laws enforced and prosecuted, these pornographers are going to keep putting this junk out there, and kids have free and easy access to it. Okay, Joe, let's go to the next one. Governor Glenn Youngkin just signed a bill into law that actually limits minors to social media use of only 1 hour a day. Wow.
Yeah, it's a bold move, Cotton. But my look, my initial reaction to that is like what I do love is that we have leaders out there who are looking at this problem. We've identified the problem, and that there are leaders out there who are brave enough to go out there and sign into laws things that are the acute harm to all of our kids. And frankly, I am interested to see where I am excited that we are having these conversations. I hope they keep going. I'm interested to see how the Virginia law develops. I think there are outstanding questions out there, but I mean, just as a general matter, I think it's very important to that we have more leaders, whether Republican or Democrat, go out there and say we are going to stand up to big tech, and we're definitely going to do that. We're going to definitely do that when it comes to protecting them from big tech.
That's right. And let me just say this for our parents that are listening, is currently you can set time limits on the amount of time your kids are using on their smartphone device or any device, on their gaming device, on their laptop, or anything else. And at Enough is Enough, we always recommend that parents get certain controls in place, like limiting the amount of time, which is so important. Kids are addicted to screens. We've done podcasts on this, a lot. And if you're a parent of a kid using technology, you already know how hard it is to get them off the tech. So just encourage outdoor play, real life interactions, and less time on the screen is always a good thing. Okay, so Joel, your friend of mine, former Enough is Enough board member Gail Slater, was tapped by President Trump to lead the antitrust efforts at the Department of Justice. And as you so rightly said, there are more than one ways to skin a cat. So let's talk about what is happening now at DOJ under Gail's leadership and the antitrust case that she's already brought against Google.
Yeah, so big fan of Gail. I've always respected and loved her work. She's just a widely respected expert on all of these issues, and so what she's doing at the helm of the antitrust division at the DOJ is to break up that or address the issue with respect to the data monopolization that has happened between Google and now even Apple. Because there's two cases, there are three cases, but the two against Google, one against Apple. It comes down to this fundamental idea and concept, which is how have these tech companies unlawfully basically game the system so that way they're the only purveyors and collectors of our data. And this is so important, not just for market regulations, like take the market stuff, put that to the side. But the problem that you have here is that these companies have felt there's no account. They've not had to be held accountable, not to kids, not even to the individuals or their consumers. And so the underlying goal of antitrust is to ensure the consumer welfare. And so what Gail, I think, Gail is doing, and I know that it's top of mind for her, is that she's acknowledging that there are these problems in these markets. And what she wants, I think what we want to do, the message we want to send to these companies is that if you are going to unlawfully monopolize our data, we're not going to stand for it. And even if you did obtain that data through lawful means and through mergers, well, okay, you have responsibilities. And so what we ultimately want to do is disincentivize this mass collection of data so that only a few companies can avail themselves to and control everything from what we see, what we do, and who they interact with. And when you get to the issue of kids, it gets even more dire. So the work that Gail is doing is just so important, not just from a general market strategy, but this impacts every individual family. This is so important to get right, because if we get it wrong, then these big tech oligarchs will be able to tell us what we see, what we do, and they'll be able to tell us how to parent our kids. And now to be clear, that is not the underlying goal and strategies that the DOJ is engaging in. This is just the ancillary effect. Once you have all these positive things happening in the legislator saying that you cannot use data this way, and then you couple that with look, you can't monopolize it either, you disincentivize, you take the monetization, and that is the original sin of a lot of these free services, a lot of these internet services. Once they feel that there's an actual stick, the carrot doesn't taste as sweet as they thought it did. And so that's ultimately why we want to sour the carrot a little bit.
I love that. That's the real disincentive, right? So we're gonna wrap up this podcast. Joel, it has just been a delight to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing your expertise and your passion to this issue. We've really needed you in this space for a long time. I'm glad you're here and you're just doing such great work. How can audiences learn more about you? What's your website? How can they follow you, et cetera, et cetera?
So the good news is, as my mother says, I have opinions and I want them known, so I'm not hard to find. So you can go on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, but also follow our work at the digital. I run the Digital Progress Institute, so you can check out what we're doing there at digitalprogress.tech. But I mean, not hard to find, and yeah, very much appreciate the work that you guys do, Donna. Enough is enough. Really can't do it. I can't do all of this without these strategic partnerships and these wonderful relationships that you and I have, and so I just, it's been a pleasure and a delight to work with all of you, and so yeah, I look forward to that continued partnership. It's been great.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Joel. And I just want to encourage our parents and everybody listening. I really do believe that we're turning the tide now. It takes a long time to turn ships, DOJ with law enforcement, with public policy, state and federal, and with these big tech companies. But I really do believe that the ship is starting to turn, the tide is starting to turn, but we all need your help. But most of all, parents, grandparents, you're still the first line of defense. You're always going to be the first line of defense. If we have everything working at the federal and state level, all the laws being enforced, new laws being passed, these big tech companies doing the right thing, you still need to be the first line of defense, right? So your kid, each of your kids are different. And so at Enough is Enough, we're here to help educate, equip, and empower you. Please go to our websites. We've got two, enough.org and internetsafety101.org. At the 101 site, we've got tons of free information. If you're concerned about cyberbullying, social media, online gaming, cybersecurity, pornography, predators, you name it, we've got free information, free guides to help you. So please go there. We send out alerts every week of what's happening legislatively with big tech, with our friends like Joel are doing. So please sign up, share this podcast with your friends. And also, we are a nonprofit. So if you feel like the work that we're doing is helping you, you can make a tax-deductible donation, and we would love that. But regardless, we're here to help. So thank you, and please join us on our next podcast. And I'm going to leave you with a saying of one of my dear friends who just passed on recently, and she said this. This is from Mary. Said, if you see someone without a smile today, give them one of yours. Thanks, everyone. Okay.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Internet Safety with Donna Rice Hughes, designed to educate, equip, and empower you to keep your children and family safe in the digital world. Until we talk again, have a beautiful and safe week.